things are going to be worse in the next year or two than they've been literally in the last 100 years. This is going to make a war look good in comparison to what people's going to happen. There are going to be people starving in the United States, in Europe, and certainly in Africa. People are going to be starving in Africa in the next month or two. So there are some bad times coming.
Here at Liberty and Finance, we're licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. We are standing by the inventory, ready to make sure you get what you need, even into the wee hours of night and on weekends, because preparedness doesn't stop. Call us 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is former Marine, naval aviator, and financial author Bob Moriarty. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you. And what I wanted to discuss today is if we can have a kind of top-down, kind of big picture view of what is wrong with the financial system. Now, you've been talking about this for quite a while and wrote in your book, The Art of Peace, your view on what was happening. And it's really prophetic in a way, because this is what we're seeing happening right now. And I know last time we had you on, you said that really everything is coming to a head from many different directions, and this could be a financial catastrophe going forward. And we're definitely seeing today in the markets, gold and silver are rising again, gold almost to $2,000, silver to $26, which might be signaling some sort of fear in the markets. But I do want to touch on what you wrote right here in The Art of Peace back in 2016. You said the banking system is collapsing. Only a few recognize it today. But when the system grinds to a halt after the banks steal all the deposits of their customers, the world will get it. We may well have our first worldwide revolution as a result. So what do you mean that we're going to have a worldwide revolution as a result of this financial catastrophe that you see coming?
That's a two-part question. And I want to take credit for saying we're going to have a worldwide revolution, because I'm absolutely convinced it's going to happen now. It's not going to happen for exactly the same reason that I thought. Now, between the last time we talked and now, we've had the Ukraine war become a lot bloodier, and we've had sanctions put on Russia. And between the failure of the dollar, the failure of the euro, and the new world reserve currency, which is going to be based on oil and gold and commodities, there is going to be a revolution, but it's not going to be because of the financial catastrophe. It's going to be because of the food catastrophe, okay? Inflation is shooting out of sight because of some incredibly stupid decisions by the Biden administration, and that's going to get worse. And then when you put in the effect of the sanctions, the Ukraine and Russia provide 30% of the world's wheat. And either it's sanctioned in the case of Russia, or it's never going to market in the case of Ukraine. There are going to be food crises in dozens and dozens and dozens of countries. And quite bluntly, after 2 years of COVID, people around the world are extremely angry. You can see it right now. China shut down Shanghai, which is the biggest port in China. 25 million people are in lockdown, and they're furious. So we are going to have a revolution. It's going to be worldwide, and it's not as much because of the monetary situation as it is the food and energy situation, inflation. But if we go back to the monetary problem, I think anybody that ever took basic economics understands this. You cannot spend your way to prosperity. And that's what the United States has been doing since 1971. if you look at a chart of the value of the dollar since Nixon took us off the gold standard, I think the dollar's lost 98% of its value.
It definitely has lost 98% of its value. And if you compare that to gold, I mean, as gold is approaching $2,000 an ounce, it's about 99% of its value that it's lost. So it seems like what you're saying is that the most noticeable thing to people is not going to be the financial issue. It's going to be the food shortages. But that the food shortages are a result in some sense of the financial issues, right? Of the inflation, of the bad policies that have been in place for so long.
Well, what you've got is you've got a flock of black swans, okay? The inflation issue was caused by the COVID lockdowns and then the increase in pent-up demand and the United States government and Europe pouring money into the system. That's going to create a lot of inflation. But when you take into account the sanctions, okay, you just threw a hand grenade in the world's financial system. Now, do you understand intuitively why sanctions are always a bad idea?
What I would say to that is that free trade is typically better because then it's more efficient, right? Because some countries can produce things more efficiently than others, and then you trade for that. But I guess, can you share with our viewers why sanctions are always a bad idea?
I'll say one thing to you. There's a quote, and I can't tell you who it's from. When goods cross borders, you have peace. When goods stop crossing borders, you have war. And that's absolutely true. And the reason sanctions are a bad idea, this is always, always, always true, is every transaction has a buyer and a seller. So if the buyer tells the seller, well, I don't want to deal with you anymore, I'm not going to do trade with you, who does that hurt?
It would be hurting both parties.
Of course, because no trade exists until you have a willing buyer and a willing seller. And trade occurs because it's good for both people. Now, that has nothing to do with politics, but inherently, sanctions are always a bad idea. And the United States already has an inflation totally out of control. To put sanctions on Russia, I'll give you an idea of how stupid it is. Now, I just read something. Biden's energy policy, which has been an absolute disaster. There's two main things that he's done. He killed the Keystone Pipeline, okay, which is pretty stupid. And he said the federal government would not allow drilling on federal land. So then all of a sudden the price of gasoline doubled and Americans are pissed off. So he's going to Iran and to Venezuela, and he's telling them he's going to lift sanctions if they'll pump more oil. And the total insanity of this is we don't want Canada to benefit by selling oil, but we do want Iran and Venezuela to benefit. But he announced on Friday the Biden administration to resume oil and gas leasing on federal land on a limited amount of federal land, and he's going to increase the royalties. So if he announced that Friday, if it became effective today, how long will it take before the first barrel of oil actually hits the market? A couple of years. You got to drill it, you got to case it, you got to put it on the pipeline, and then you got to sell it. So you're really talking about 2 years. So we have an immediate oil crisis that he's going to do something that takes 2 years. Some of the actions of the federal government right now are utterly insane, but the sanctions are going to destroy the EU. First of all, Germany gets 45% of its gas from Russia. So if Russia tells Germany to take a hike, or Germany tells Russia to take a hike, they just shut the German economy down. And the German economy is the mainstay of the European economy. Now, Nord Stream 2 is in place. Okay, it might take a month or two for them to turn all the switches on and hire people and open the valves. They could have more energy in a month. But because they're trying to demonize Putin, as of right now, Nord Stream 2 has been canceled. And that's insane.
So is it more because of the Keystone pipeline that oil is rising and not so much because of this Russia-Ukraine conflict? Because I think a lot of people believe that's why we're seeing oil prices double, is that, Russia invaded Ukraine.
Long before Putin crossed the border, the price of natural gas and oil had gone up. The United States government, the federal government, a lot of the state governments have made a lot of decisions. Now, in theory, they're saying, well, we want to go to a greener economy. We want to go to clean energy. And that's all well and good. But to get to clean energy, you've got to have dirty energy to produce the wind vanes and the generators and the coppers and everything else. So the United States economic policy really for the last 2 years has been an utter disaster, and we're starting to pay for it now. And the sanctions on Russia and the restrictions on Ukraine shipping either energy or food are going to make it, and instead of it being 10x, it's going to be 100 times worse. So there will be dozens of countries having change of government. And this isn't right wing. It isn't pro-Trump. It isn't anti-Democrat. It's just a fact of economics. 800 million people in the world require food assistance every day, and the price of food just doubled. Now, that is a disaster that makes the Ukraine war look like a pimple on a gnat.
Now, I've heard before that really supply chain issues and shortages can cause hyperinflation. Is that what you see happening here in the U.S.?
Yes and no. Let's define hyperinflation. Now, what country since 1979, other than Zimbabwe, of course, should have had the most inflation based on the expansion of their money supply? Whose money supply has gone up the most? It's actually Japan. But Japan has always been self-financing. The Japanese people are quite happy to finance the government debt. Zimbabwe, of course, they're just printing money there. It's like Germany in 1923. Hyperinflation is not a lot of inflation. Hyperinflation is when people lose faith in their currency. Now, I'm convinced, I don't say I believe, I'm saying I'm convinced that the euro is going to collapse, because what they're doing is so destructive to Europe in general and the economy in general. And when the euro collapses, the dollar will collapse. By putting sanctions on Russia, and Russia was prepared for the sanctions, the United States has moved the center of gravity 5,000 miles to the east, and the two most important geopolitical economic powers in the world today are Russia and China. And of course, they've been buying up gold with both hands. And Russia has essentially said, we're going to go back to a commodity, energy, gold financial system. We'll be totally off the SWIFT system. We'll have our own system. So the sanctions were designed to hurt Russia. And in fact, they're going to hurt the EU and the United States to a catastrophic level. I am reading things now about the Shanghai shutdown in China. And everybody saying if you think there was a supply chain problem before, it just got 10 times worse. So we've got a flock of black swans flying overhead. and we got some really bad time. This would be a really good time for anybody to be prepared. Don't go into debt. Keep extra supplies. Keep gas in your car, and live somewhere that's safe to live, because things are going to be worse in the next year or two than they've been literally in the last 100 years. This is going to make a war look good in comparison to what people's going to have. There are going to be people starving in the United States, in Europe, and certainly in Africa. People are going to be starving in Africa in the next month or two. So there are some bad times coming.
Now, for the most part, the U.S. seems to be, compared to the rest of the world, pretty wealthy. And it seems like some people might say that with food prices going up, it's a burden on people, but it's not going to be a threat to hunger. It's not going to cause, mass hunger in the U.S. Your view is different, though?
Yes, absolute nonsense. You can go into a lot of stores in the United States and see empty shelves. It's not an issue of how much you have to pay for the food. It's an issue of, is the food going to exist? Because of the cost of natural gas, because of the cost of diesel, and because of the limited supply of ammonium nitrate and fertilizer, farmers are going to be planting less this year, and they're going to be producing less this year. So it doesn't make a rat's ass what the price is. If it's not on the shelf, you've got a problem. But Americans are not used to this. I'm 75, and there was not a single day that I've been alive that you went into a store and there would be empty shelves. And it's going to become more and more and more common. So there's two issues. There's one, if the food's available, you can't afford it. And two, what if it isn't available? So there will be chaos in the United States.
How do we prepare for a food shortage?
Let me give you an example. When I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, I was living in Salt Lake City with my mother. And of course, that's the center of the Mormon religion. And the Mormons believe that you need to store 2 years' food because emergencies happen. And when I was 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 50, I thought, well, that's kind of a waste of time. But if you think about it, you got to eat the food anyway. So what difference does it make if you go to the store now and you've got a 2-year supply? When I saw that Putin was going to go into Russia, I've got two places. I've got a small farm here, and I've got a little mill house that I do my writing in. I stocked up with 3 to 6 months food and fuel in both places because it doesn't cost me any more, but I know I've got food. I don't care what happens. I've got 3 to 6 months to worry about it. But it's a good time to prepare, and it's a very bad time to be speculating on Tesla or Bitcoin or any of the local scams.
I think that's so key is we need to look at what's most important and definitely have our focus on that. Now, a lot of people in our community also view that precious metals are a way to protect against this financially. If you could remind our viewers your view on that.
Okay, and I can't remember exactly how I put it before, but I'll give you what is more or less my typical answer. I use gold and silver as a store of value, as a savings account. That is my reserve. But basically, you want to be invested in things that are real. Okay. I think that Putin goes to my website and reads it every day because his economic advisor sounds like he should be writing for me. We're going to go back to a real world economics where you got to produce something and you've got to do something of value to get a paycheck. And resources are real. as opposed to pieces of paper. Now, going back to, I'm going to answer your original question first. How did I know we're going to have a financial collapse? The United States has had a debt-based system since 1971. You cannot spend your way to prosperity. You cannot borrow your way to prosperity. You can only produce something of value that someone else wants and is willing to pay for. We've gotten away from that. We've shipped our entire production of real goods to China, which we did absolutely deliberately, and we were quite happy to do. So China's laughing because they've got all the plant and equipment now. They could shut their economy down for 6 months. It doesn't particularly hurt them. The United States is basically screwed. We don't produce anything except pieces of paper. We have totally fraudulent elections. We have total fraud in our legal system. We have total fraud in our education system. We've got a Supreme Court justice who cannot define what it is to be a woman. Now, I've had 3 children. I was at the birth of 2 of them. And when the kid pops out, what does everybody check? Does it come with or does it come without? And that's a really simple issue. And when a Supreme Court justice can't say, well, a woman is one of those that's born without, we've gone so far overboard on what is essentially total insanity. And now Elon Musk has gone and just scared everybody in the social media arena because he's threatening to allow Twitter to show both sides of issues. And that's really scary. At Harvard or Yale, one of the really big top-notch universities was going to have a panel discussion on free speech. And 75 lawyers to be ran into the room and chased the people out. These are lawyers. These are the guys in charge of defending free speech, would not allow someone to have an opinion that they disagreed with. That's a really scary situation. And it's not a situation that's going to get any better. It's going to get worse.
So it seems like the main point that I'm hearing is that our system is fake and that we really need to own what is real. So important to kind of get back to the basics as you're mentioning and realize, okay, we need the food and we need real investments.
Yes, absolutely.
We had viewers submit some questions here. So if we can just kind of dive into them, they're mainly investment related. So the first one is about precious metals. They're wanting to know, do you think precious metals are going to correct from here or just go straight up from here? And I think this takes us from the main question here is it going to be a wild ride going forward or is it just going to be straight up from here? So your perspective on that.
Okay, there was a map of the world from around 1600 or 1650, and it showed the world as it was known, the furthest to the west. And there was a dragon there, and it said, "Beware dragons, here lie." That's my answer. Okay, we are in such a scary, scary place. The only thing I'm going to say is you're going to see things that you would never believe. I'm a pessimist. I've been studying this for 50 years. I listened to Tricky Dick talk on August 15th, 1971. I said, that's the end of the financial situation. Once you get away from gold, it's over. We're going to see bad things.
Now, this viewer is wanting to know about silver, and a lot of people talk about how the silver price is manipulated, and they want to know, well, how much is it really worth? And other people also talk about this manipulation and say, well, if silver is suppressed, why own it? But I think to your point, when it comes to investing in precious metals, it's about holding wealth. It's about holding real things. So it doesn't necessarily matter what the paper price is. you have something real outside of this fake system. But your take on that, do you think silver is manipulated, and what do you think its real worth is?
Every financial market is manipulated. They always have been, they always will be, and it is absolutely meaningless. Now let's go to the more important issue of silver suppression. Under the British education system, if you go to college in the UK, they teach you that the question is more important than the answer. Why would the question be more important than the answer? The reason the question is more important than the answer is if you ask the wrong question, you always get the wrong answer. If you ask the right question, you might still get the wrong answer, but you got a better chance. What was the price of silver in November of 2001? It's about $4 now. It's $4.03. And what was the price of silver in April of 2011? It was just short of $50. It was $49 and I think 87 cents. Therefore, the question that we should be asking is, was silver suppressed from $4 to $50? If it was suppressed, it was the most ineffective suppression of any commodity in world history. So it would be absolutely meaningless to say it was suppressed. If something goes from $4 to 50, you've had quite a move. I've had a lot of people that I thought were intelligent tell me about how silver was suppressed from $4 to 50. And I said, are you kidding? Okay, it couldn't possibly have been suppressed. You could make an argument for somebody who was running the price up, but you can't make an argument saying it was suppressed. You should buy silver for its value. Okay, now I would advocate, here's the precious metals. You've got gold, you got silver, you got palladium, you got platinum, and you got rhodium. And you should buy what's cheap, and you should sell what's expensive. And that's true of every stock, every commodity, and everything else. Do you have any idea what the price of rhodium was about 3 or 4 years ago? It was $600, and it ran to 30,000. Now, how many 600s are there at 30,000? 50. Okay. All you would have to do is get it right one time in your life, and you could retire. Most of my money, my reserve money, is in silver with platinum second and gold third. The nice thing about gold is that it's recognized around the world. I use British sovereigns and French francs because they're a known commodity. We know what they weigh. They're easy to identify and they're easy to buy. Everybody should have a reserve. It's true of banks, it's true of companies, and it's true of countries, and it's true of individuals. I have gold and silver available to me, and I don't look at it as investing. I look at it as security. Gold and silver are an insurance policy against chaos.
All right. Well, Bob, we really appreciate your time today in answering our viewers' questions and kind of giving us a big picture overview of what is wrong in the financial system and how to prepare. Before we let you go, where can our viewers find you online? I know you have numerous books available on Amazon. We'll put that link in the description to your Amazon author page. Any last thoughts before we let you go, and where can our viewers find you otherwise?
Well, they could find me at 321 Gold and 321 Energy, and I really want to thank you. I found it interesting that the last, say, 1,500 words of a book that I wrote 6 years ago could be so timely today. But I will say, I price the books that anybody can afford them. They offer great value. I've had lots and lots and lots of good reviews. And they should, if you're a serious investor, you should at least read the books.
All right. I think you've mentioned before, if you aren't able to purchase the books, if it's too expensive, then you have no business investing.
That's very true. I mean, in everything in life, you have to earn your spurs and you have to pay your way. And if you can't afford $10 for a little education, you have no business. You're not an investor.
We'll put the links in the description of this video to everything you've talked about today. Bob, once again, thank you so much for your time, insights, and God bless.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. You ask great questions and then you shut up.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.